Can we just be kids again? Laughing, holding hands, merry-go-round romance, jump into forever then. No matter the quest, I'm with you to the end. Through the tears and smiles, rain, sunshine, or clouds. Ooh, can we just thank God for the middle? Cause only death can part, thank God for now.
Baby, let's take a scenic route. We can do the dash or we can slow down. I think we found our rhythm now. Only death can part us, so thank God for now. All is fair in love and war, okay, I know that's true. Some may pray on us, but we just pray through. Baby, let's take the scenic route. We can do the dash or we can slow down.
Welcome to part 2 of Till Death Do Us Part with the Gammages. Listen, we're here to explore the challenges and the thrills of saying I do for a lifetime. And one of the things that I believe every marriage is filled with is journeys. And what we want to explore is how to take these journeys and turn them into a moment of refreshing. Because every marriage, no matter how long you've been together, it needs to reset, refresh, and restore as often as possible. So talk to us.
Yeah, man. The way you phrase like the journey, I think it would be awesome if we looked at it in the vein of like an exit. Like you're on a highway and just exits that you're passing, and every marriage should have exits built into them to where you can pull off the road and just
But
pause.
exit, we don't
Rest
mean
stop.
divorce, right?
Rest stop.
I'm trying to
Right.
figure out what
No.
Like, it's
Exit.
every marriage.
Rest stops.
But we
Rest-
talking about Till Death Do Us Part.
Right, so I'm saying, and like exit 1, let's just get off right here,
Rest
get
stops.
something to eat.
Let's do rest stops.
Yeah.
Let's use
But
rest stops.
can rest stops be limited? We
Exit.
we on the
I
journey.
don't like the word exit.
Okay, so let's say pit stop. Let's just go rest stop.
Let's
Rest
go.
stop.
Rest stop.
Pull off, get some fresh air for a moment.
Yes.
And it's not when something big is happening. It's not like you're waiting for like this catastrophic thing to happen. No. We chose to do this right now because we want to refresh. We want, and then especially when you add kids on top of that or work, and like all of these things matter for the couple to build in these rest stop moments. So we're we're gonna intentionally take time to invest back in us.
And it's just like your body. When you go, you don't always go to the doctor when something is bad. You do your
True.
annual checkup.
True.
And I think the same thing in relationships. You have rest stops or moments of, hey, let's just check in. Let's see where we are. Let's see if there's any hidden wounds that we just haven't discussed or talked about, because life is life sometimes. But having those moments of just, hey, let's sit, let's talk, let's reconnect, let's make sure there aren't, was it internal bleeding? Or things that have maybe just seeped in over time, but just taking those moments to
That's
refresh.
good.
Yeah, but take us on a journey.
Bleeding.
Yeah.
Take us on a journey.
Whew. A journey for us. One journey for us has been my mother-in-law lives with us, and that has been a journey because she moved in with us when our son was born. So that's roughly about 10 years ago now. And the journey of like us still being us in the marriage, but at the same time having an additional adult in the house with us, like that has just been an ongoing thing. And not an ongoing thing because it's not a problem. It has been a growing process, to your point, the journey of that, because now the things that we cater and do, because it's your mother, who wouldn't want to be able to do these things for your mother? But it's your mother. It's not my mother. And so there are times where it's like, I mean, that's your mama. Like, hey,
Which is big, right?
What you gonna do?
I would say, me and Rashida, we've had at different times from both her side and our side, family members come and move in with us. And you just said something that I think is so big that I see a lot of people get wrong. But you said your mother, right? Not my mother. And one of the things I think we've done well in those moments is if it's your family, you communicate. You communicate with them, right? I think that sometimes it can grow and evolve, but initially, man, it does so much. And I'm saying it's because a lot of us get to those crossroads. I personally think that like everybody at some point is going to reach a crossroad to where it's time for somebody to move in or you to move in with somebody. And that's the beauty of family. But at the same time, how communication is handled is so important that it's like, hey, don't create animosity or turmoil through how you communicate. But if my mama moved in with us, then Rashida should be able to be like, hey, Brian, yo mama, right? So I'm open to talk about yo mama, but you need to go. Now, of course, there's always limitations because that's my mama.
Right.
So come correct.
See, I consider I'm a little different. I consider moms. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like if I have something to say to your mom, I'll say it because we have it's all about relationships.
And that's my point, right?
And
That-
same thing, vice versa. Like,
That's my point. Like, you have to really assess where you are.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is at the moment that your spouse is communicating, I would like for you to handle this, then you need to understand that you should be like, that's your mama.
Right.
And so like, hey, you know,
And it's a phrase that the culture now has just on the tip of their tongues. It's the 10 toes down. Like in culture, when you say 10 toes down, it's like you now have to defend what it is that you have placed in position. So in the sense that Mama Annie lives with us, to your point, Pastor Rashida, she is my mom. Like, and I talk to her often about all kind of things.
Yeah.
If it's something serious, if there, one that I'm thinking about in the top of my head, I'm not a fan. It's just because of how I grew up.
Yeah.
If you go outside, you're outside, you don't then come inside and sit on the furniture. Like, that's just not what you do. You sit on the floor. Now, you can't tell no adult that.
Right.
You can't tell no adult, hey, when you come in the house, sit on the floor.
Yeah, I would never.
You see what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that. And I would never tell Mama Annie.
And he also don't like people sleeping on the couch, which is
No,
weird.
you
I'm
don't
like,
lay
that's
down
what
in the
I grew up
living
We lay
room.
down
Like,
in the living room.
no. I would get a whooping
Go
if
to
you
the den. It's like,
go to the den. And we don't have a den right now. So sleep on the floor if you go lay down in the living
It's the
room.
same way. I don't like nobody like in the bed. When you've been outside, don't lay in the bed.
Right.
Please don't
right.
lay in the
Right.
bed.
And I think that that's the journey, right?
Uh-huh.
Because we've all been a part of premarital counseling, and there's nowhere on any of these sheets are like, well, what do you do if this person has a problem with folks who sleep in the living room, and how do you handle? And I think a lot of times people are trying to cross off the X's and the O's, or dot the I's and
Everything.
cross the T's,
Yep.
and it's like, no, you're signing up for a journey.
Correct.
Oh, man.
And realize that on a journey, you have to have well-timed pit stops,
Yep.
refreshment
Yep.
points that like the only way to survive the journey is to always properly stop on time.
And and that's why that phrase 10 toes down, it doesn't work in a fruitful, blooming Christian marriage, because for you to stand 10 toes down on something, that means now you have to defend it. And for you to defend it, why now you're bucking against a system when that's not the journey.
Right.
That's a stop sign in the journey when you now feel like you got to stand 10 toes down on something. No.
Right.
Okay, how do we grow in this thing? What is the real reason why you don't like coming from outside, sitting down on the couch? Well, you've been outside so long, you smell like outside. Like, that's an outside smell. Now that's gonna come in and sit. That's gonna be in the furniture now.
Rashida be like, you smell like outside. I'm literally smelling myself. I'm like, I ain't been outside. So I'll be like, I ain't been outside. So first of all, let's get that correct. I ain't been outside, so I can't smell like outside. Right? There goes my mind again, thinking through the technicalities of what you're saying. I'm like, mathematically, it's not possible.
I'm like, did you go to the
Systematically.
bar? Yes, that's
It was
outside.
No, I'm not
there.
So then I'll tell you what I did. I started like just changing shirts. I'm like, you know what?
No.
Outside is on the shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm, you know what I'm saying? It's an outside shirt. I got outside shirt. I got inside shirt. When I go outside, I put on this shirt. When I come back inside, I put on this shirt.
There you go.
Listen.
No.
But then, like, but it's so beautiful, right? And I think that, like, man, I think in every season, one of the things that me and Rashida talk about, like, at the top of every new year is, like, what does refreshing look like? And so, and I say that because every season, and I love you guys said adding kids to that there's always things adding. And I see people a lot of times that they're waiting for things to be subtracted in order for them to do us right. But the truth of the matter is things are always being added. You have the least amount of people in your family right now, right? That your kids gonna have kids, right? That you might have more kids. Like your kids gonna find friends. These friends might become best friends, right? Like it's always growing. And so it's like, no, you can't be waiting for a moment of subtraction to do what's right. And so in our lives, like this year, right? I was like, you know what? Traditionally, we had like a date night, and I was like, man, I'm looking at like the year ahead, and I'm really thinking, that like that might be difficult. What if we just went away a month? Went away once a month for 3 days, right? Same amount of time, but let's approach it a little differently. And right. And so it's like, but having that moment, and I'm saying this because like you should know what it is.
Yeah.
And then
evaluating it.
Yeah.
I like what you said that. I like when you said, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're good.
I was saying, I like when you said every season.
I shall not treat you like a child. Speak freely.
I was saying when you said to evaluate each season, I think that's important in any marriage because every season is different. So I think with us, in being in ministry, that changes a lot. So we had expectations of like a Wednesday night date night, but then when we incorporated Bible study back in, that went away. And so, and also I always tell Brian, it don't have to be away anywhere, just having a moment for us, whether it's us watching TV or a movie or making arrangements just to be able to talk face to face, no phones, no child, just us, I think is very important. So not just evaluating the season that you're in and setting that time.
I love what you said there, Pastor Rashida, because when couples, oftentimes I do think that's where couples mess up as well, and they don't factor in the growth of like their life in the sense of like business opportunities and job and careers and things like that. In ministry, as pastors, you're forever giving of yourself, and everybody else, that's a 24/7 job. We don't have a Monday through Friday 9 to 5. Like we have a 24/7 literal. Our goal is to be accessible to the individual that needs to pull and draw from us. In the marriage, it is so critical. And I'm thinking that's how we are on this side with ministry, but for couples that deal in just business in general, wherever your job positions land you, it is important that your spouse knows that you're able and willing to pull away from that and just focus in and see them in that moment.
And I want to talk about something because, I see things in very like bullet points, right? And when what Rashida said, right? And I think that what keeps things able to evolve in that journey and realizing that you're always looking for partnership, not policy to move you forward, right? Partnership, not policy. And what's the difference, right? Policy says we're supposed to go out to eat every week. Well, partnership says, well, what's going on in your life? What's going on in my life? And how can we come together for what we see is important? Right? And I see a lot of people get mad because it's like, oh, this week we couldn't go out to eat. So now you're like, you're not committed to the marriage. Well, you're committed to policy, not partnership. You saw what was happening in my life this week. Like, did you take what was happening in my life and see how we could partner together for refreshing? Did you see how we could come together? One thing I tell people all the time, like rules are done retroactively. Policy is done retroactively. What does that mean? That you look at something, you determine how can I keep it here? And you set rules to keep it there. You look at something, you say, how can I keep it here? You set policy to keep it there. But if something is growing, those same rules and policy that served well can now be a hindrance, right? That's what we mean by every season, every journey is being willing to partner at every point, being able to see what's going on in your life, what's going on in my life, and not be trying to bring policy. Policy and rules keep things where they are. And if where they are is good, put some policy and rules in place. But if you know that God is trying to grow you, or looking to grow what you're doing, or change what you're doing, refresh what you're doing, you got to put partnership over policy, right?
I love that. I don't even like the word rules and policy in a marriage.
Because she don't like rules. She don't like rules at all.
No, I had rules growing up.
Right, that was child.
We set rules and foundation for our daughter, but for our marriage, there are no rules.
And I think that's important, right? Because we got to realize that words are triggering, and we're meeting people who have already lived life. And there are words that on the journey, you'll discover trigger words. Yeah. I have trigger words, right? Like that just, so one thing I told Rashida, like, if someone yells, I was raised to mean that they're out of control. Yelling and out of control are connected to me. Like, and as much as I would love to like disconnect it, it was how I was raised. So anytime someone yells, I'm like, you're out of control. Now, here's a problem. That statement can just fly out. Like, you're out of control. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, snap, like you're yelling triggered this. Like it came out.
Yelling at each other.
You know, and we don't yell at each other. Right. But I'm just saying, like, in the moments, right? We could be in environments where someone else is yelling. And she knows Brian thinks this whole thing's out of control. And there's no way you're gonna bring it back from me. I'm on my way out the door. You know, and it's like understanding that there are words, right, that trigger. There are moments that trigger, right?
And I would say that even for I would like to say this and I would hope she knows this, but I believe she does, just in the way mannerisms I've seen her act and respond. For me, Avari knows that I am a protector of individuals. So I don't like somebody attacking somebody else. Mm-hmm. Not that it is like, not that they can't protect themselves or that they can't defend themselves or whatever. It's just, I don't like people disrespecting people. And so in those moments, if we're in a setting and someone is either disrespectful or mean towards someone else, immediately I'm that person's partner. And now we're not double teaming this individual. At the same time, I want them to know that you have aid in this. Yeah, you got support in this. And if that means in that moment, like I don't like somebody being by themselves. So if I drift away and now I go over here and she sees me now over here with this guy because he was a loner in that moment. Well, she doesn't think he gonna abandon me. Like we came here together and now he over there doing that right there. No, she knows, okay, Gammages is sensitive. He saw that somebody was in need or felt backed up in a corner, so he went over to the aid of that individual.
Yeah. I love that with the way you said that, how Avari knows you enough to, I think that's so important in marriage. Like, if you know your husband well enough, you know if he's doing something, there's no question because you know that's his character. I love that. I love when
that's a part of the journey too, learning. Like you got to learn each other. I want to say this somewhere, I can't remember the scripture, but it talks about you learning each other, being watchful, being carefully watching how each other moves. I can't remember the scripture, but anywho. But I think that's one of the elements of the journey is I have to learn. Like I think it was study. I think that's the word it is. I have to study your spouse. That means I have to be watchful. I have to ask questions. I have to see how they move, and because sometimes it's not always something that they can verbalize, depending on, again, how you've been raised. Some people know how to verbalize. Some people know how to communicate.
You're not trying to change him. Right. You're like, okay, where are you right now in life? You're like, okay, let me see how I can help. Yeah. Not so much change him. You don't need to be like that. You need to get over it. Because, they do that too.
Like, I think that one of the worst things that anyone can do is dismiss what another person is expressing. You cannot dismiss. Dismissing is committing to saying, I'm not willing to refresh. Wow. Right? Being dismissive is saying, I'm not committing to like reconnecting. Right? Like when you're dismissing a person may not have the best communication skills. The person, hopefully, people say this all the time in marriage, that they're like, man, I want you to bring it to me first. Well, you know what it means for you to hear it first? It means it hasn't been processed yet either. Uncut. Right? Like this has just been in my head and now it's coming out of my mouth for the first time.
I may need to be number 3.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, and I be telling you all the time, you be wanting to be first. Sometimes it's good to be number 3 because they done got to hear like that sounded really stupid when it finally came out of my mouth. But now they trying to figure out they spend the whole rest of the, I'm gonna call it, it's an argument. They spend the whole rest of the argument trying to back out the first statement. And it's like, it's like, bro, if you would have just let me, there's certain moments that I'm so glad that we have good friendships in our marriage. Because I'm like, no, take that to Ariana. Like, take that to your sister. Take that to your mama. They know how to hit your reset button. Right? Like they know how to refresh whatever all that is. Like I heard it, but I have no comment for it. Right. And it's also like marriage is like, I'm gonna say this, and I know it's controversial as we transition, but it's like, listen, it's not about being somebody's everything, but it's being everything they need when they need it. She has a whole family. We all have a whole family, and we're not here to replace the other parts that have been feeding this person so well.
Here's something, and you said that, and I'm gonna tag team on that because it's a thing that I believe is controversial as well. It took me a long time. We've been married 15 years now, and it took me, I don't know at what point I was able to acknowledge it, but I'm able to say now that Avari's my best friend. When I say that statement, I mean it in a way of our marriage and who she is, her character, everything about her, I absolutely love being around her. But when I use the phrase best friend, I think one of the things that in marriage, where husband and wives get it mixed up, I don't want Avari to be my best friend the way I treat my guy best friend. Me and Pastor Brian, the conversations that we have and things we talk about, it ain't like they're unholy. It's just I don't want to talk with my wife like that. Like that. That is a best friend thing. Like, I don't want.
Subject I want to cover right
It's
now.
not. So when individuals are in marriage, and I hear people, and I don't knock it when I hear them say it, because tomato. But when I hear somebody, when I hear a husband or a wife refer to their spouse as, oh no, that's my best friend, we do everything, I be thinking to myself sometimes like, that is interesting. Like, how? Why? I don't.
I'll never get this statement my dad said to somebody. I was listening to him, and they were complaining about people that are surrounding their spouse. And he looked at him and he says, I want you to know that the person you love is a product of the people you don't like right now. And like, it was a silence moment. And with that silence, we're going to wrap it up. But thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Wow.
What a way to end.
Love it.
Thank you guys for the time. Man, it's been beautiful.
Yeah.
The destination is out of this world.
Yes.
And man, till death do us part.